And here we go. We are going right into the playoffs against the Montreal Canadiens in round number 1. They are 34, 39, and 7 now, so they're starting to fall off here, it looks like. Although so are we, as far as our record goes, 40, 36, and 4. So this should be an interesting one. Here we go. Game number 1 against Montreal. That will be a 4-2 Montreal victory. Don't like to see it. 42 shots to 26, so we outshot them, but they got the win. 3 stars of the game, Robinson, Poulin, and Moog. First period, no scoring. Second period, you have LaRouche on the power play and shoot with the goals for Montreal to make it 2-0. Then you have Tapio Levo with our first goal of the game from Poulin to make it 2-1. But then it's Pierre LaRouche with the goal with 4 seconds left in the period to make it 3-1. We go into the third period where Guy Lafleur scores for Montreal to make it 4-1. And then Anton Stastny on the power play makes it 4-2. This is from Dion and Stastny, but it is not enough in the end. So we're down 1-0 in a best-of-5 series. Here we go, game number 2 against Montreal. That will be a 3-2 Hartford victory. Shots are 34-27 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. 3 stars of the game, Howe, Lafleur, and Andrechuk. First period, no scoring once again. Second period, Montreal actually gets up to a 2-0 lead at one point. Natras on the power play and then Lafleur. But that's followed up shortly after with our first goal of the game by Mark Howe from Kissio and Beers. Makes it 2-1. In the third period, Jari Kurri scores early in the period from Andrechuk and Howe. And then we go to overtime where Marcel Dion scores on the power play from Stastny and Levo. So we're now tied at 1 in the series. Here we go, game number 3. Important game here. And that will be a 7-2 Hartford victory. Shots at 33-27 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. 3 stars of the game are Coffey, Levo, and Anton Stastny. First period, we get off to a 4-0 lead to start out the game. Poulin from Thoresen gets the game started, and then Andrechuk unassisted for the second goal of the game. Tapio Levo from Bernie Nichols and Anton Stastny, and then Paul Coffey from Dave Maloney and Kelly Kissio makes it 4-0 heading into the second period, where Guy Lafleur scores for Montreal, their first goal of the game, makes it 4-1, and then Eddie Beers from Paul Coffey makes it 5-1. In the third period, Guy Lafleur scores once again, makes it interesting early on in the third period, but Peter Stastny from Anton Stastny and Marcel Dion made it 6-2, and then Tapio Levo from Jari Kurri and Peter Stastny makes it a 7-2 victory. Here we go, game number 4. This is an elimination game. We're going into it. Come on, Hartford. And there's a goal by Bob Gainey from Montreal. Not a good way to start out game number 4. Come on, guys. Oh, man. Not a great first period. I mean, we did only keep them to 1 goal, but we didn't get a goal ourselves. So, come on, boys. Better second period now. There it is, Dave Andrechuk with our first goal of the game from Jari Kurri and Tapio Levo. That'll make it 1-1. And there's another one. Gary Nyland with his first of the playoffs from Peter Stastny and Jari Kurri makes it 2-1. And that'll be it for the second. Heading into the third, up by 1. Come on, Hartford. Ooh, Pierre Mondu with the goal. And there's one. Kelly Kissio from Rochefort and Nichols. We're up by 1 once again. Come on, Hartford. A little less than 5 minutes remaining. You can do this. There it is. Okay. We win game number 4, and that means we move on to round number 2. Let's check out the top point scorers quickly for that round. So Tapio Levo leads the team with 5 points, followed up by Kurri, Stastny, and Stastny all with 4 points. And a goal, Mike Vernon with a 908 save percentage. Okay, so he's doing better so far. We'll see if he's able to continue that throughout the playoffs, but so far so good. And let's see who we have in the second round. And it will be the Detroit Red Wings, who are 35, 42, and 3 on the regular season. So here we go. Game number 1 against Detroit. That will be an 8-5 Hartford victory. Wow. Shots are 38-26 in favor of Hartford. 3 stars of the game, Kurri, Andrechuk, and Coffey. First period, you have Gage with the goal for Detroit. Get them up 1-0. And then Norman Rochefort from Marcel Dion and Bernie Nichols makes it 1-1. Kerr and Larson make it 3-1 Detroit. And then late in the period, you have a goal by Mike Rogers from Eddie Beers and Kelly Kissio to make it 3-2, heading into the second period, where Reed Larson scores to make it 4-2 Detroit, and then Dave Poulin, 12 seconds later, from Jorgen Pettersson and Gary Nyland, makes it 4-3. And we head into the third period, where we have done most of our scoring here, as Paul Coffey early on from Jari Kurri and Dave Andrechuk makes it a tie game. Andy Brickley breaks the tie to get Detroit back in the lead, but then Jari Kurri, once again, from Dave Andrechuk and Norman Rochefort, makes it a tie game once again. And then Bernie Nichols from Marcel Dion puts us in the lead. Then you have Dave Andrechuk with 2 goals. The first from Peter Stastny and Jari Kurri. The second from Paul Coffey and Jari Kurri to give us the 8-5 victory. Here we go. Game number 2 against Detroit. We have a 10-0 Hartford victory. Wow. Wow. This was a complete domination of a game. Shots are 44-9. Wow. 3 stars of the game, Curry, Levo, and Andrechuk. First period, you have Dion from Nichols and Rochefort, then Curry from Levo and Stasny, and then Nichols from Stasny and Dion wraps up the first period. Second period, you have Nyland from Stasny and Dion, then Andrechuk short-handed from Poulin and Rochefort makes it 5-0, heading into the third period, where Paul Coffey scores from Mike Rogers and Tapio Levo, makes it 6-0. Then you have Tapio Levo from Curry, and then Tapio Levo once again, about a minute later, from Curry and Andrechuk. Then you have Dave Poulin from Dave Andrechuk and Yari Curry, and then Dave Andrechuk from Peter Stasny and Yari Curry to make it a 10-0 win. Wow, that was impressive. Although I hope we can continue that scoring pace, as they're definitely going to be coming at us in this next game after being completely embarrassed in that one. Here we go, game number 3. That will be a 5-0 Hartford victory. Wow. So shots were a little bit more even this time, 32-23, but we still outshot them. 3 stars of the game, Coffey, Stasny, and Dion. First period, you have Rochefort on the power play from Nichols and Howe. Then you have Howe from Stasny and Coffey. And then you have Dion from Stasny and Nyland. Makes it a 3-0 lead heading into the second period, where Marcel Dion scores from Coffey and Rochefort. And then the third period, Anton Stasny from Paul Coffey and Norman Rochefort makes it a 5-0 victory in game number 3. That is a 3-0 series lead so far. Here we go. Game number 4, elimination game in Detroit. Here we go. And we go through the first period, 0-0. That's fine. And that was a goal by Detroit. That is their first goal in over 2 games. Reg Kerr with the goal to put them up 1-0. And there's our first goal of the game, Bernie Nichols from Tapio Levo and Norman Rochefort. We're tied at 1. And we are now headed into the third period on the penalty kill, tied at 1. Come on, boys. Good defense here. Oh, there's a goal by Mike Foligno for Detroit halfway through the third period. Come on, boys. Come on. So they had their game. They shut us down. Only a 2-1 performance. Shots at 38-26 in favor of Hartford, but they got the 1 goal that they needed. 3 stars of the game, Langway, Rochefort, and Malarchuk. Here we go. Game number 5. Once again, an elimination game, so we're going into it. First period underway. And there's a goal by Hartford. Yari Curry with the goal from Dave Andrechuk puts us up 1-0. And there's a goal for Detroit. Paul McLean with the goal. Gets it tied. And there's another goal for Detroit. Dale McCourt. And there's a goal for us. Peter Stasny from Anton Stasny and Marcel Dion. This is all in the first period, by the way. And that is the end of the first. We were tied at 2. And there's one for Paul Coffey in the second period from Andrechuk and Peter Stasny, up by 1. And there's another one. Peter Stasny from Paul Coffey and Dave Maloney. We're up by 2. Good second period so far. And that'll be it for 2. And we're up by 2 heading into the third period. Come on, Hartford, close this thing out. There's a goal for Detroit, John Ogrodnik. Oh boy, boarding major for Jorgen Pedersen. Not a good penalty to take at this time of the game, Jorgen. Oh man, Jody Gage with the goal. Gets it tied. That sucks. Heading into overtime now. Oh man, a lot of penalties here. Who's it going to be? It's going to be your Hartford Whalers with the goal. Good to see they still haven't fixed the the glitch where the overtime winner doesn't show on the screen there. But we do know that it was Poulin who scored the goal, as his name is highlighted. So there's something for the patch notes. But we do win this series against Detroit in a 5-game series, and we are moving on to round number 3. Way to go, boys. Shots are 43-26 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. 3 stars of the game, Stasny, McCourt, and Curry. And now let's see what we have in round number 3. And that will be the Toronto Maple Leafs, who were 41-34 and 5 during the regular season. All right, before we go into it, let's check out the stats real quick. So leading the team currently is Curry with 15 points in 9 games. He definitely turned it on in that round. Same for Andrechuk, 13 points in 9 games. Dion with 11 points. Stasny with 11 points. A lot of guys who are point per game here. Rochefort even. Anton Stasny. I mean, it seems like half our roster is point per game here. So certainly doing a lot of scoring here these playoffs. Vernon with a .904 save percentage still over 9 games played. Okay. Still doing very well. Remember, a .904 for this time period is very good. Here we go. Game number 1 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. We have a 3-2 Hartford victory. Shots at 30-27 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. 3 stars of the game, Kissio, Gallant, and Rogers. First period, it was actually Toronto who scored first twice. Anderson and Gallant with the goals. During the second period, Kissio scores from Maloney and Anton Stasny. and then Mike Rogers from Kissio and Beers. And that'll have us tied going to the third period, where Dave Andrechuk scores from Rochefort and Levo, and that'll put us up 1-0 in the series. Here we go, game number 2 against Toronto, and that will be a 7-4 Toronto victory. Shots at 36-29 in favor of Hartford Whalers, but they outscored us by a pretty wide margin there. 3 stars of the game: Lehman, Smith, and Ruskowski. First period, you have Lehman and Ruskowski with the goals for Toronto getting things started. Then Bernie Nichols with the goal for us from Kissio and Levo gets it to a 2-1 deficit heading into the second period, where Duchesne scores for Toronto to make it 3-1, and then Dave Andrechuk on the power play from Yari Curry and Bernie Nichols makes it 3-2, but then Smith and Sittler score, make it 5-2 heading into the third period. Peter Stastny opens up the scoring in the third period on the power play from Paul Coffey and Anton Stastny, makes it 5-3. Then Steve Smith shorthanded for Toronto makes it 6-3. Bernie Nichols on the power play, it looks like on the same penalty there from Dave Andrechuk, makes it 6-4. But then Ruskowski with the empty net makes it a 7-4 Toronto victory. Here we go, game number 3 against Toronto. This time we have a 7-1 Hartford victory. Shots at 39-20 in favor of Hartford. 3 stars of the game: Stastny, Nichols, and Coffey. First period, you have Bernie Nichols from Anton Stastny and Petter Thoresen, makes it 1-0. And then Jorgen Pettersson from Thoresen and Rogers makes it 2-0 heading into the second period, where Anton Stastny scores early from Bernie Nichols and Gary Nyland. And you have Yari Curry from Dave Andrechuk and Peter Stastny. Then Anton Stastny from Paul Coffey and Marcel Dion. And then Anton Stastny for the hat trick from Paul Coffey and Marcel Dion once again makes it 6-0. And then Daryl Sittler scores, makes it 6-1. But that is all they would get in this game, as Paul Coffey scores in the third from Maloney and Poulin to make it a 7-1 Hartford victory. Here we go, game number 4. That will be a 4-2 Hartford victory. Shots are 32-17 in favor of Hartford. 3 stars of the game: Nichols, Gallant, and Nyland. First period, Gerard Gallant scores for Toronto, makes it 1-0. But then Dave Andrechuk, shorthanded from Nichols and Coffey, makes it 1-1. Then Mark Howe from Thoresen and Pettersson makes it 2-1. And second period, Bernie Nichols scores from Marcel Dion and Gary Nyland, makes it 3-1. Gerard Gallant scores again for Toronto, makes it 3-2. That is it for the second period. And then late in the third, with the empty net, Tapio Levo scores from Kissio and Beers, gets us the 3-1 series lead. Here we go. Elimination game 5 in Toronto underway. And that'll be a goal for Ruskowski right off the bat for Toronto. Oh boy. Landon McDonald with the goal for Toronto makes it 2-0. And that'll be the end of 1. It's no problem. I mean, we've come back from worse before. There it is. Goal by Yari Curry is 6th of the playoffs from Paul Coffey and Dave Maloney. Cuts the deficit in half. And there's the tying goal. Bernie Nichols from Kelly Kissio and Gary Nyland halfway through the second period to make it a tie game. And that is it for the second period. Heading into the third on the penalty kill, tied at 2. And that was a goal for Lehman. Scores for Toronto. It looks like it might have been on the power play. There it is. Dave Andrechuk from Maloney and Curry makes it tied at 3 late in the third period. Oh boy, we are headed to overtime. Come on, Hartford. End this here. End this here, Hartford. Come on, Hartford. Stop taking penalties. Oh boy. It's a Toronto victory. Young with the goal. That's unfortunate. So we're going to have to go to a game 6 here. Shots are 46-38 in favor of Hartford. 3 stars of the game: Lehman, Curry, and Wilson. Here we go. Game number 6 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is, once again, an elimination game, so we're going into it. First period underway. Oh man, come on, Hartford. There it is. Dave Andrechuk from Tapio Levo and Peter Stastny. We are up by 1 heading into the second. Oh, never mind. We are up by 2 heading into the second period. Yari Curry from Norman Rochefort and Peter Stastny with 7 seconds left. And that is indeed the end of 1. Here we go. Second period up by 2. And there's one for Toronto. Krushelnyski with the goal. Cuts the deficit in half. Oh, a last-second goal by Yari Curry in the second period from Peter Stastny. And Paul Coffey gets us back to a 2-goal lead with the 3-1 score. Wow. Clutch goal by Yari Curry there. And Ruskowski with the goal for Toronto. Gets him back within 1. Oh boy, Landon McDonald. We are now tied at 3. Halfway through the third now. Come on, Hartford. Come on, Hartford. There it is. Paul Coffey from Dave Maloney and Peter Stastny. Hold it. Hold it. There it is. Yari Curry once again from Paul Coffey and Dave Andrechuk. We're up 5-3 with 2:25 remaining. And there's 6-3. Dave Andrechuk from Paul Coffey and Dave Maloney. And that is all she wrote for this series. We are moving on to the Stanley Cup Finals. Okay. That feels good. especially after the failure that was last year. After making the Stanley Cup final the year before, we are now back once again in the Stanley Cup final. But hopefully this time we'll have a different result. Shots at 38-25 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. 3 stars of the game, Curry, Coffey, and Stastny. Oh, there you go. New achievement. Upset. Win a playoff series against a team finished ahead of you in the regular season. So there you go. And this will be the ultimate test. The Philadelphia Flyers 55-20-5 with 115 points in the regular season. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was the Philadelphia Flyers who we faced a couple of years ago. Was it not? Yeah, it was. It was the Philadelphia Flyers who we faced in the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years ago. They, of course, won. So a rematch of the Stanley Cup Finals of 2 years ago is now underway. But before we get into the series, let's take a look at the player stats. So Dave Andreychuk and Jari Kurri lead the way with 22 points each. 20 points for Coffey, 17 for Peter Stastny, 16 for Nichols, 15 for Anton Stastny, 14 for Levo and Dion, 11 for Rochefort, 9 for Kissio, 8 for Maloney, 7 for Poulin and Nyland, 5 for Howe and Beers, 4 for Rogers and Thoresen, 3 for Pettersson, none for Samuelson, Marion Stastny, or goaltenders, of course. And speaking of goaltenders, in 15 games played, Vernon has an .896 save percentage. And remember, for this time period, that's actually pretty good. So, job well done so far for Vernon, but let's hope he can keep it going for one more series. Here we go. Stanley Cup Finals time. Philadelphia Flyers, Game 1 underway. And we win Game 1 7-3. There you go. Shots at 39-27. 3 stars of the game. Levo, Stastny, and Andreychuk. So first period, Tapio Levo unassisted with the power play marker at 5:09. Then you have Gilbert and Holmgren with the goals to put Philly up 2-1. Second period, you have Kerr with the goal to put Philly up 3-1. But then you have Rochefort with a goal from Curry and Stastny, and then Andreychuk from Coffey and Peter Stastny to get us tied heading into the second period, where we score 4 unanswered goals. Dave Andreychuk early on from Gary Nyland and Paul Coffey makes it 4-3. Anton Stastny on the power play from Marcel Dion and Peter Stastny makes it 5-3. Anton Stastny with the empty net at 19:04 from Marcel Dion and Gary Nyland makes it 6-3. And then Tapio Levo for good measure at 19:43 from Maloney and Kissio makes it the 7-3 win in game number 1. How do you like that? Here we go. Game number 2 against Philly will be a 5-3 victory. All right. I mean, we're already up 2-0. I'm not going to get too excited yet because I believe this is how the series 2 years ago against Philly went. We were up 2-0 and then all of a sudden they come back. So not going to get too excited yet. Shots at 34-33 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. 3 stars of the game, Coffey, Dineen, and Curry. First period, Jari Kurri scores from Andreychuk and Peter Stastny. And then you have Bobby Clark tying it up at 1 for Philly. Second period, you have Marcel Dion scoring from Gary Nyland and Anton Stastny, makes it 2-1. Bill Barber scores for Philly soon after to make it 2-2. Kelly Kissio with the goal from Norman Rochefort and Paul Coffey makes it 3-2. So we now have the lead. Dave Andreychuk from Jari Kurri and Peter Stastny makes it 4-2. Bernie Nichols with his 9th of the playoffs from Dion and Coffey makes it 5-2. Kevin Dineen with the goal late in the period to make things interesting heading into the third. But of course, that would be all the scoring in the game as nothing happened in the third. So just like that, we were up 2-0 and we have the opportunity to go up 3-0 here in game number 3 at home. Come on, Hartford. Oh man, a 6-1 victory for Philly. So the away team has won every time so far. Shots are 29 apiece. 3 stars of the game, Dineen, Prop, and Bridgman. First period, you have Prop and Houston with the goals. Second period, you have Erickson and Gilbert with the goals for Philly, so that makes it 4-0 before we get our first goal. And Jari Kurri with our first and only goal of the game from Peter Stastny and Dave Andreychuk to make it 4-1. And then Freiser and Otto score for Philly in the second period to make it a 6-1 victory as there was no scoring in the third. So it's now 2-1 series. Don't let them get back into this, Hartford. Come on. Make this a 3-1 series going back to Philadelphia for game number 5. So here we go. Game number 4. There you go. That'll be a 5-1 victory. Shots are 32-24 in favor of your Hartford Whalers. 3 stars of the game, Andreychuk, Curry, and Nyland. Andreychuk with a 4-point performance. First period, you have Nyland with the goal early on from Andreychuk, and Curry makes it 1-0. Then Mark Howe from Curry and Stastny makes it 2-0. And then Andreychuk late in the period from Nyland and Coffey makes it 3-0. Second period, Joel Otto with the goal to get Philly on the board, makes it 3-1. And then third period, you have Kelly Kissio from Paul Coffey and Dave Andreychuk. And then Tapio Levo from Curry and Andreychuk to make it the 5-1 victory. and we are 1 win away from the Stanley Cup. Come on, Hartford. Elimination game number 5. We're in Philly. Don't wait for the home game. Just end it here. Come on, Hartford. There it is. Mike Rogers with the goal from Eddie Beers and Jari Kurri. We're up 1-0 early. And that is it for 1. No other activity during that period. Come on, Hartford. And there's Philly's first goal of the game. Phil Sykes with the goal makes it 1-1. Ooh, tripping on Paul Coffey. Not good. Man, they took advantage. Bobby Clark with the goal. Makes it 2-1. Come on, Hartford. There it is. Mike Rogers with another goal from Gary Nyland and Kelly Kissio. Makes it 2-2. And there's one back for Philly. Jamie McCown with the goal to put them up 3-2. And there's another one. Bernie Nichols. We're going back and forth here from Mark Howe and Marcel Dion to get us tied heading into the third period. Come on, Hartford. End it here. Come on, Hartford. End it here. 5, 4, 3, 2. We're headed to overtime. Come on, Hartford. Something. Yeah, there it is. Bernie Nichols with the goal to win us the Stanley Cup. Wow. After a very underwhelming regular season performance, we come out here in the playoffs and perform to what I thought we would do 2 years ago. And we almost did it 2 years ago, except of course that time Philly won, but this time we win against the Philadelphia Flyers, who were 55-20-5. So despite only being 40-36-4, we still had the makings of a great team, clearly, and we won. Wow. That might be a great way to end off this series, I'm not gonna lie. Because as we've seen, the draft is not great in these historical GM modes, and free agency is non-existent until the salary cap kicks in, which is not for another 20 years or so. So I think this might be a good place to end the series off here, to be honest. Shots 33-29 in favor of Hartford. 3 stars of the game: Nichols, McCown, and Nyland. There it is, the pinnacle. We win the NHL Stanley Cup as a new achievement. And there it is. There is our path to the Stanley Cup. We swept Montreal in the first round, took care of Detroit in 5 during the second round, and the third round we got through Toronto in 6, and we finally beat the Philadelphia Flyers in 5 during the Stanley Cup Finals. Did not go to a single game 7, and that is all she wrote. So I think with that, we can officially call this series a success. I'm not sure if the Hartford Whalers have ever gotten the Stanley Cup. Did they ever get the Stanley Cup when they were in the league? I don't think so. Okay, just confirming on Google. No, they did not. I had to double check. I was pretty sure they didn't, but I just had to double check there. I was not alive during the Hartford Whalers' existence. Maybe I was just born around the time that they had moved to Carolina, but still, nonetheless, it's been a while since they've been in the league, so I had to double check. But not bad. Only 7 seasons in the league, and already got themselves a championship. Of course, the regular season that accompanied it was not pretty, but still, we turned it on during the playoffs when it counted, and I'm really proud of this group. Let's check out the final playoff stats for this year's Hartford Whalers. Dave Andrechuk led the way with 31 points in 20 games played, 16 goals. Jari Kurri with 30 points as well. Paul Coffey with 26. He's been great. Peter Stastny with 22. He was a great free agent. I think he might have been one of the only free agent signings, along with his brother Anton Stastny. I'm pretty sure the Stastny brothers were the only notable free agent signings we made. Then you have Marcel Dion with 20 points, Bernie Nichols with 19, 17 for Levo, 13 for Kissio, Rochefort, and Nyland. Just some really great depth scoring here on this team. Dave Maloney with 9, Poulin with 7, same for Howe, Rogers and Beers with 6, Thorson with 4, and Pedersen with 3. I gotta say, I hate patting myself on the back here, but I gotta give myself credit for that acquisition of Marcel Dion. I think that was one of the smartest trades we could have made. For a struggling Tom Barrasso, nonetheless, and it's not like he was even growing. He was still at a half-star ability, and he had actually regressed, I believe. So to trade that for Marcel Dion, who the LA Kings were apparently selling. I'm not going to say that's the reason. That's not the reason we won the Stanley Cup, but that's a huge difference maker in the process of winning the Stanley Cup over the Philadelphia Flyers. Like, that was an excellent trade. And in goal, it looks like Garrett actually went in there for a few games there. 145 minutes, so it's not like he just went in there for relief for a few minutes. No, he looks like he played full games there. Let's see. What games did he play? He played against Philly. Really? I thought that was all Mr. Vernon, but apparently the veteran John Garrett gets in there for the last couple of games there, and he steals the show. So, you know what? Good for him. That's a good cap to his career here in Hartford. I don't think there could be a better way to cap off your career than getting in there for the last couple of games and stealing the show. So I like to think that's his last career game there for Garrett. Let's take a look at some of the other history that we have going on here with the player index. Mike Rogers with 538 points in his career from 1979 to 1985. He's been here the entire time that we have been in Hartford. Same for Mark Howe. I think only a handful of players that we can say that about. Gordy Roberts as well. Yeah, there's only a few players we can say that about. Rogers, Howe, Roberts, and Neufeld are the only ones who have stuck around the entire time. So good on Rogers for being the points leader. And then in second, you have Paul Coffey, the defenseman, 452 points in 471 games played. That was an excellent pick during that draft. Peter Stastny in third with 386 points in 368 games played, over a point per game. And then Blaine Stoughton in fourth. He, of course, no longer plays for us. He hasn't played for us in 3 years, in fact. He was part of that Yari Curry trade. He now plays for the Devils. He had 385 points in 303 games while he was here. Mark Howe with 347 points in 449 games. So not the offensive juggernaut that Coffey was, but still a very solid defenseman. Very good captain on the back end. Anton Stastny with 314 points in 375 games. Initially, I just signed him because he was Peter Stastny's brother. But in the end, he proved to be a very valuable winger and probably played on a line with his brother quite a lot. I mean, the lines weren't up to me. It was up to, the coach. But still, very solid signing out of free agency there. Then you have Gordy Roberts with 299 points in 525 games. Solid two-way defenseman. Dave Anderchuk, he was definitely a surprise as far as draft picks go, because I believe he was only, I want to say he was a 3-star potential in the draft, maybe even a 2.5-star. But he shot right up there to a 5-star potential and a 4-star ability and started lighting it up basically right away. As we take a look at his career history, we go back to his 19-year-old season, 59 points in 76 games his rookie year. Then the year after, 98 points in 80 games. So he just fit right in, basically. But still, quite a few notable players over the course of this GM mode. And in goal, we have had quite a few of them. We've had 6 goaltenders over the course of this GM mode, including 5 games from Tom Barrasso. Then you have the 9 games that we got from Engelbrecht earlier. He's with the Binghamton Whalers currently. Then you had Al Smith, who's now retired, played 42 games for us. He wasn't all that great. He had a 874 save percentage, but then again, no goaltender was really all that great for us, ever. Besides a couple of good seasons from Garrett. And then, of course, the infamous John Davidson, who for some reason never lived up to his potential here and played phenomenally other places. Then, of course, you had Mike Vernon, who came in recently and did a pretty respectable job. 94 wins, 881 save percentage. Save percentage was pretty rough all around for basically everybody, but he did well enough. He helped get us the Stanley Cup this year, so I can't complain overall. And of course, there's the man, the myth, the legend, John Garrett, with 289 games played. He's stayed with us the entire GM mode from 1979 to 1985. 138 wins, 92 losses, 28 overtime games, which I would imagine are partially ties as well. 11 shutouts, 884 save percentage throughout his career. Gotta give some credit to our coach, Jack Ferreira, as well. Pretty big part of our success. 188 wins, 100 losses, 26 ties, 6 overtime losses for 402 points over his career. Let's take a look at single season records. So Blaine Stoughton with the most goals in a season with 68. Then you have Mike Rogers with the most assists in a season with 75 that same season. Blaine Stoughton with 112 points was the most points in a season. I believe there was another, Mike Rogers had 112 points that season too. And then Yari Curry, more recently during the 1983-84 season, also had 112 points. So a 3-way tie there. Peter Stastny with the highest plus-minus of 64 during the 1983-84 season. Mike Rogers with the most faceoffs won during the 1980-81 season. Yari Curry with the most hits with 131. Paul Coffey with the most penalty minutes in a season with 345. And he also had the most penalty minutes in his career with 1,500. Wow. I mean, he's only 24. He's only 24, and he's already racked up 1,500 penalty minutes. Sheesh. I mean, settle down there, Paul Coffey. What the heck is he doing? He's just getting into fights every game or something. Mike Rogers with 19 power play goals in his season. And you have Yari Curry with 8 shorthanded goals this past season. And of course, many players are going to be tied for the games played. Will Jack Ferreira stay with Hartford? I believe so. I'm going to renew him for 5 seasons. And now that I think of it, I should probably check the league stats real quick. So most goals in the league, Kenton Nielsen with 67. Wayne Gretzky with 121 assists and 185 points to lead the league. Wow. 404 shots, 51 plus minus. So Gretzky just tore up the league once again. Bobby Clark with the highest face-off percentage as usual with a 63.2. And a goal, Pete Peters with the most wins with 46. Peters also with the highest goals against average with 2.69. Highest save percentage with 8.99, so no 900s this year at all. He also had the most shutouts with 6, so Peters looks like he tore it up. Probably going to get some awards there. And speaking of awards, let's get right to it. So the Ted Lindsay and the Art Ross go to Wayne Gretzky. The Maurice Richard goes to Kent Nielsen. The Lady Byng goes to John Anderson of Toronto. The Bill Masterton goes to Mel Bridgman of Philly. The Mark Messier Leadership Award goes to Barry Beck of New Jersey. And the Jennings goes to Pete Peters of Philly. I figured. And the Hart between Gretzky, who is apparently number 7 now, Lemieux and Bourque, goes to Wayne Gretzky, of course. And the Conn Smythe, who is the playoff MVP, it is Paul Coffey with 26 points in 20 games played. That's a good choice. That is a good choice. There was a lot of good choices this year. I mean, it could have been Andrechuk, could have been Curry, could have been maybe Peter Stastny. I mean, to be fair, I would give Coffey the edge over Peter Stastny just given his point production as a defenseman. But still, that could have gone to Andrechuk, Curry, or Coffey. I doubt Vernon because Vernon had the 887. He looks like he fell off there towards the end. But Garrett came in clutch those final games there, that 938 save percentage. And getting back to the awards now, the Calder between Skriko, Patterson, and Shepard. You have Petri Skriko of Chicago. And the Norris between Wilson, Murphy, and Bourque is Larry Murphy of Pittsburgh, 98 points. Francis Selke between Hannon, Gainey, and Graydon. You have Dave Hannon of Toronto, 44 points in 80 games played. And the Vezina between Elliott, Waugh, and Peters. It's probably Peters, right? Yeah, Pete Peters with the Vezina Trophy. GM of the Year between Keith Allen, Bob Pulford, and Cliff Fletcher. It is Keith Allen of Philly. And the Jack Adams between Pat Quinn, Red Berenson, and Phil Esposito. It is Pat Quinn of Philly. And here's our season summaries. We reached the playoffs, we had a winning season, we reached the finals, and we won the championship. Didn't have any other positive categories, but that doesn't matter. We won the championship. That's all I really care about. Total season score is 36, and the total career score adds up to be 155. All right, we're now July 1st of 1986. And just for fun, I think I'm going to check out the draft, see what is going on this season. Yeah, really not much. I mean, there's Leach, there's Fleury, Recchi, some good names here, but you can see what I mean about the drafts being very lackluster, especially later on. Like, it's a very striking difference between this and modern GMOs. Like in the modern GMO, the draft is just packed with like 3-star, 2.5-star, 2-star players, all like even the later rounds. Like sometimes when you finish the 7th round, there'll still be players with 2-star potential. I've even seen players with 2.5-star potential left at the end of a modern day draft. So I think I'm ready to move on to the next team is what I'm saying here. I mean, after having the success that we did this year, we can call this GMO a success, and I am ready to move on. Because as fun as it's been, there is some clear problems with historical franchise modes. So just one final thing before we end things off here with the Hartford Whalers. We're going to do our end of series jersey retirements, and there are going to be 2 this time. So the first one is going to be Mike Rogers, number 71, add to the list. His number is now retired for the Hartford Whalers. And the second one, it's got to be Mr. Paul Coffey. Of course, number 77, add. There you go. Mike Rogers and Paul Coffey now have their numbers retired with the Hartford Whalers. And with that, that'll be it for this series. And I will see you guys in the next series.